Good morning, good afternoon, and a warm welcome to all of you who are joining us for this webinar. My name is Cecilia Björk, and I'm one of the Analyst Relations Managers here at Verizon. First, let me thank you for attending this conference today. We appreciate a lot that you take time out of your busy schedules to join us for the Verizon series of analyst-only webinars. In today's session, we will talk about how SASE forms an important part of Verizon's network as a service strategy by securing and optimizing the network environment. Verizon SASE management is available as a service delivered from the cloud. We will take you through an overview of the offering, touch on the roadmap, and also cover some customer use cases. Our speaker today is Vinny Lee, who is the Director for Product Management and Development for Verizon's Network Security Services. Vinny, who also has a background from our Security Services team, is a perfect lead for the development and management of Verizon's SASE offering. Before I hand it over to Vinny, let me take you through a few housekeeping items. For questions, we kindly ask you to use the Q&A box where you can enter your question in writing. We will address your questions after the presentation during the Q&A session. Today's call is recorded and we'll share a link with the replay along with a copy of the presentation. You're free to share this with any of your colleagues who were not able to join us today. At the end of the call, you will see a few poll questions. We appreciate a lot if you could please help us to provide your feedback, as it helps us to constantly improve and deliver a better product for you. All the information in today's webinar is public. However, if you would like to quote or use any of this content externally, please contact any member of the Verizon AR team and we will be happy to help you with that request. With that, I'll hand it over to you, Vinny.
Thank you, Cecilia. Hi, everybody. My name is Vinny Lee, as Cecilia let you know, and I'm here to give you an overview of the Verizon SASE offering and specifically how it fits within our set of offerings and our roadmap and so forth. To kick the journey off, we'll get into a small recap of just the marketplace. I'm sure most of you know this, but it's always good to level set everybody on the same page on where we are and where the market is. And revalidate some of the areas that you've seen, that you're seeing as well. To begin this off, businesses are focusing on reworking their networks based on an ever-changing environment. We're seeing cloud adoption, services moving off to the cloud. Don't forget, though, there's still plenty of companies that keep some of the applications on-prem. So it is a dynamic environment in that area. We've got a lot more remote users. Obviously, COVID and everything really accelerated that trend to the nth degree, but that is continuing to grow, and we don't see that changing materially. We're going to have remote users. They're here to stay. More and more security threats and more complexity. Those last two, by the way, compound each other. As the environment gets more and more complex, there are more and more security threats that come in. Don't forget, the complexity makes it harder for customers to manage their environments, service their users, get access to the applications that they need, and so forth. That does improve their overall productivity for their corporation, but it doesn't make life easier on the network of security teams in any way, shape, or form. If we go on taking a look, many of you have seen and know that the SASE, as the convergence of network and security come together, that has really coined the term for SASE here. There's the network performance aspect and there's the network security aspect. In the past, they were really treated very separately, managed by different groups within an organization. Heck, sometimes different companies or outsourcing groups were managing each end individually for companies. But what I think the industry has recognized is that they can't be done in silos anymore. You've got to converge both the network and the security side of the house in order to get and meet the mission critical needs for the customers. You've got business agility issues. You need to improve that application performance. You've got to simplify operations as much as you can. You've got to dynamically scale your security, reduce your risk, and so forth. Time and time again, network might change, and with that change, security posture needs to, policies need to. So we all know this was coming around, and this is really the birth of the Secure Access Service Edge goals in order to bring those two together. This is where Verizon comes in to help our customers improve their business agility while securely connecting their users to those resources. And that is the beginning of the offering. And looking at a way to connect people from anywhere to anywhere, reduce your costs, provide a single solution for the customers or a single offering on how to do that for them, integrating software-defined WAN concepts, really extend out as network as a service. I'm going to go into network as a service a little bit later in here. There is a view that Verizon has out there about differentiating between what network as a service is and Secure Access Service Edge that we'll review here. And hopefully there might be some questions that will come back through at the end of this conversation. The offering itself is SASE. The goal here is to combine the Verizon Managed Network Services with Verizon Managed Security Services. It is a cyclical, one feeds the other type conversation. There is no beginning and end. It is constantly evolving and feeding upon itself. We need to provide that great connectivity that customers need to get to those applications, but then secure them from the threats out there. This gets into concepts such as zero trust networking. It gets into visibility and reporting on those security threats, but not just the security threats, but also on latency and performance. You're trying to ensure that you have the best path to those applications and that you have diverse paths to those applications for failover scenarios, depending on if it's physical or logical, something in your control at the last mile, or something core in the network itself or the internet out there, and how to mitigate those risks if things happen. Have to address for hybrid type connectivity scenarios, so that being both private and public destinations for the customer. Are the applications hosted in the cloud that are internet accessible, or are they hosted on-prem somewhere that they need to get access to? So these are really the types of conversations that you need to account for when dealing with both network and security. Getting into the meat of the conversation, what Verizon has found is that for most enterprises out there, there isn't quite yet a single vendor or partner that you rely on in terms of a technology stack that does both SD-WAN and SSE-like services to meet the full SASE vision. And as such, what Verizon is focused on is a couple of combinations for our customers on top-tier SD-WAN solutions and top-tier secure service edge solutions. Those being for Verizon at this point in time, Versa and Cisco Edge for the SD-WAN side, and Zscaler and Palo Alto Networks on the SSE side. And what Verizon has done is certified these solutions to work together, but more importantly, have an overlay of SASE management that can provide for policy management, incident management, monitoring those tunnels and that connectivity, providing that end-to-end SLA between the SD-WAN and the SSE. And then in addition, beginning to have a portal or a single view into both of these offerings. So you can see how your SD-WAN is deployed and how your SSE is deployed, among other things that might be comprising of a NAS, total NAS offering, all managed by the Verizon Tier 1 NOC and SOC. This is key for us because this allows the customer to rely on one party, one vendor, delivery of both their network and security needs at the end of the day in an integrated fashion. Not to say this is the only combination of vendors and partners that we will manage, but these are the standard ones, the ones that we've built processes and expertise around for the customers in order to simplify our operations, be able to lower our cost delivery to the customer so that we can pass those along to them and get an optimized solution for customers. We do expect that the market, excuse me, is changing day in, day out. The partners may be augmented, may change who will have certified in here. So don't take this as this is all Verizon will ever do. But these are the focus companies that we've got for the time being. In addition to those services, we've also have the ability to add on services such as managed detection and response, tie into endpoint security from some of our partners, work with our rapid response retainer, add DDoS shield so they can protect the customer's network in these scenarios. And remember, I'll just call out that DDoS part. We are saying a DDoS piece is important to protect your network. It's not just the public-facing applications out there, but we've seen attackers go after your core network to disrupt your business, as opposed to just your public-facing applications or websites or what have you, as a mechanism to achieve their goals, which is usually disruption or money at some level for them. So, as I mentioned here, the SASE management offering is key to this combination of services for us. Now, when we are able to do this management, what we can bring back to the customer is enhance your performance. We can reduce the complexity for the customer. We can provide better threat protection by integrating and understanding which policies are best set on the SSE side versus the SD-WAN side. We can augment with the capabilities that they have and help implement with the customer your zero trust environment. I think that has been a topic that has been coming up more and more for our customers in the recent months, is how do these services enable a zero trust implementation for the customers in their ability to access those applications. By combining and getting to the single portal, it helps simplify the management and the security policy enforcement. Verizon can, when we're managing both the SD-WAN and the security side, can help simplify that policy management on behalf of the customer. Again, there are often overlaps in some of the configurations that are required for customers, and we know how to navigate that for the customer. And then, of course, there's increased flexibility for the customers by coming to us in this combination. Again, what I've seen, or what we've seen, is that customers that require the secure service edge typically have features and functionality that are not available for the top tier SD-WAN providers. So that's why you need to mix and match again for the customers. In part of our offering here, true to form and trying to provide the best balance for cost benefits to the customers, we do have multiple package levels on SASE management. There's the base level, which just does monitoring management, tying in the packages between SD-WAN and Secure Service Edge. But again, you can go on to the next level and you can have us do the incident management from a security perspective, or coming from the SSE, and also do the policy change management as a separate offering. And then, of course, going into the higher end, indeed, as one might expect, security events might need to be handled from an MDR perspective. So we can feed in the data elements coming from both the SD-WAN side and the SSE side into our MDR solution, providing a holistic security response for our customer. And that becomes really important for those customers looking for that combined view of all the security events that might be happening in their environment, be that from the endpoints, traditional CPE-based devices, applications in the cloud that they've got that can send the alerts from, or any other type of service that they might be pulling in. Going on to the next slide here. Now I'm going to move a little bit into our NAS strategy. This is a topic that I think is still evolving out in the marketplace, the differentiation between NAS and SASE. From Verizon's perspective, we view SASE as part of the NAS narrative, right? This is the mechanism for customers to get and manage their network in a flexible, programmable, scalable, and reliable way. It is the ability for the customer to combine different levels of service, different types of access, different types of SLAs that they're looking for, performance guarantees that they're looking for on a per site basis to develop their complete network strategy. It's how to integrate the different types of technologies and performances, the management of those networks together to provide a holistic service and a single experience, be that on just the WAN side or the LAN side, in helping them migrate and be effective. It's integrating into the cloud services. It is creating a network that performs for them. Traditional SD-WAN solutions are often marketed as you can just use the internet. But we found usually that customers that only rely on internet connectivity are not quite as happy with the results at the end of the day, and often need a combination of both internet-based and private-based access type technologies. So most of our SD-WAN solutions do include connectivity or architecture that tie into the Verizon PIP network so that we can guarantee performance across that PIP network and reliability. And then even from there, allow them to securely connect to cloud-based services if that's the path that they want, as opposed to just relying on the internet side of the house. Often this is a combination of deployment in terms of both physical and virtual technologies. Yes, you still typically need a physical device at an endpoint site, be that a small CPE or not, but often you'll be virtualizing many of the functions up in the cloud as a result of that. So there are combinations of what's going on there. And let's not forget that next gen of wireless LAN, 5G conversations, private 5G networks that have been created on customer sites, be that manufacturing or something else, can get tied in to the entire ecosystem of the offering that's going out to the customer. And then how do you get visibility across this entire infrastructure? And that's key for that. The SASE part, we believe, is just a small segment, again, just the SD-WAN and SASE. And to further give you an example here of what we're talking about, we need to secure it, right? We need to connect it. We need to manage it. All of these aspects are accounted for under the NAS scenario. The management, the NOC SOC tier 1 that can be brought to bear. We can do the incident management of health, be that on the access side, all the way through to the SSE side. Monitoring those connectivity tunnels that create that complete ecosystem. It's not just the tunnel that goes from the SD-WAN to the SSE. You may have tunnels that go from application to application. You might have services deployed on a co-location facility that needs access into a cloud service. You might have that back into your corporate headquarters. All of those things need to be monitored and managed in order to support that complex environment for customers. Turn that into any other combination of services that you might have. The remote access scenarios. You might have secure web browsing. Again, I mentioned before, you might have DDoS type solutions and need to pull all of those things in together for those customers. In terms of roadmap, what we've got here today is a high level of what has been launched, where we're going in 2023 and going in further into 2024. In 2023, or early 2023, we launched both SASE management and previously what we referred to as our advanced SASE offering, which was the combination of both the Cisco and Versa combined with the Zscaler and or Palo Alto Prisma scenarios, and that is a bundled solution or standard offering for our customers, and of course the management of that. We do support selling of single vendor scenarios, but we'll be pushing on later in the year a standard offering through Versa of their SASE component with the SD-WAN component to get at that, meet that goal for customers to have a single vendor, single port, or single solution reliability for the end-to-end solution for those customers. What I mentioned also is that we're building out the single pane of glass as well to create that view, that list of sites, and again, how to manage that connectivity, how to see what the customer has ordered from us, how we've configured it in a visual fashion so that they can better understand what is there for them to behave. And that SASE digital experience, that SASE single pane of glass, will eventually move into a quote-unquote a broader NAS single pane of glass, where it moves beyond just the SD-WAN components and the SSE components to include all the access types that are feeding those devices, all the other services on top of it. Do we have visibility services on it? Is there 5G deployed somewhere in the network? Is there a secure cloud interconnect that's coming out from our PIP network out into one of the cloud providers? All of those actions are going to get wrapped up into a NAS single pane of glass, so that when customers are procuring services through Verizon, they can begin to see in one location all the services they've ordered through Verizon in one location and see how they integrate and work together, provide that complete solution for customers. In the past, it's really been a black box. You get to go to Verizon and you say it'll work, or you could see individual components of each one of those, and we leave it up to the operations teams and the customers to see how they've been integrated and work together. Our future is more about creating that holistic experience for the customers so they can know where they want to go. We'll be expanding that into more and more co-management and co-development type capabilities. So specifically, we can support in different instances how to do co-management, but what we want to help provide is more tools that allow the customer to take more and more actions on their behalf, so they can get immediate gratification on the types of services or types of actions that are low risk and high volume, and not have to rely on Verizon to execute the normal processes. It really gives that instant gratification instant gratification back to the customer so they can see and do everything that they want on their networks. Further, that you'll see later in this year, conversation of integration of our secure hybrid network. I want to call this out. We have a service offering called Secure Hybrid Network that is in early availability, and that is going to go into GA mid this year. And this is allowing customers to access the Verizon PIP network via any type of access, last mile type capabilities that they need to get into our core network. In the past, Verizon had the end-to-end solution. In order to get onto the PIP network, you had to buy Ethernet or what have you directly from Verizon that was deployed out to the CPE. The Secure Hybrid Network will be allowing customers to connect into the PIP network with their own provided access, be that broadband, fixed wireless access from Verizon, 5G, or other providers, especially those out in EMEA or Asia Pac and so forth. And so that they can get to those, to our PIP network, do an immediate internet breakout if that's where they want to go, or leverage our PIP network to reach the applications that they want and need in a reliable, efficient manner, not at the whims of the traditional internet where there are no guarantees of SLAs or performance in any shape or form. So we'll be bringing those technologies together, and that combined, again, is really integrating our NAS view with the SASE view, of SASE being, again, just the traditional SD-WAN solution with SSE, and NAS growing into all the management services above and beyond, all the ancillary services that you have for customers and so forth. We go on to the next slide here. We do have a use case. This first use case out here is a customer that we were able to sell and begin deployment on for customers, for a customer in Europe that we have. And this customer acquired the SASE management package along with this, but it was really wrapped up into that total NAS solution. Again, there were over 250 sites being deployed globally. This one is using SASE services coming from Palo Alto Prisma, along with other services such as Cortex. There was professional services for day 0 and day 1 implementation conversations, again, combining the different pieces of service that the applications and vendor technologies that they want in there. We had the web security, they have DDoS protection added in there. We did, again, sell them the access components for these sites. And the key for this, for the customers, that they were looking for that complete network transformation in there. They were looking to be able to deploy and manage the integration of these technologies across the 250 sites that they have in place. They really wanted that security component to be handled as part of the network, built directly in with the same SLAs. They wanted the flexibility to support how their business is going to grow and change and how to manage those types of things. They wanted compliance in that. So this was a great customer that we've begun deployment with. It's similar to other initiatives that Verizon has built upon their expertise upon. But again, the key here is that one of the driving aspects they wanted to see was a combination of SD-WAN and SSD and our SASE management overlay for that customer. The second customer that we have here is a group dealing with healthcare. And again, this customer was very much focused on how do they transition to a traditional SD-WAN solution? How do they integrate a Palo Alto Prisma in this case again? Again, these use cases are just 2 recent ones that both use Prisma, not that Zscaler is not out there as well, but definitely is. They also layer on top what we call MSS, SaaS Policy Management. So what this is when you have security services out there that are in the cloud for customers, such as email scanning or what have you. Customers can overlay what we call policy management to help manage that type of security solution on top of the service being delivered, so we can do the change management for the customer. The key here too is that they brought in was the knock incident and ticket handling for Prisma, so we can pull that into our ticketing solutions. We can roll that out to the customers. We had a client service engineer added on to this customer. We had a security services advisor that was also added on this customer. And that is just additional benefits for the customer that they can learn and really understand the details of this customer's network and their environment and their applications, so that when any changes or policy management requests come in, they can really come in and understand the intricacies of how those applications work together, how the customers need to be secured, any compliance requirements in those policies, and effectively consult with the customer in a more detailed layer on how to make those changes. There's also a lot of complexity there because this specific customer integrates with a lot of partners or sub-vendors of theirs in order to build a complete network solution together. And so there's a lot of conversations of how to map the network in a secure fashion to their partners to get that information there. The big piece for them is the level of security they want to get there, working with a single vendor, that being Verizon, to deploy the complex set of solution and have an overall cost reduction for the customer. I think that might have been my last slide for everybody.
Thank you so much, Vinny. So now it's time for Q&A, and we have already a list of questions. So I will start with the first one, and we'll work us through the list while Colleen pull up the polling as well. So please have a look to your Right, there is a new poll coming up. So let's start with the first question. You might already have touched on this during your presentation, Vinny, but maybe you can provide some more details. So Chris Lewis is asking, given what you described here, what is the impact on the underlying connectivity purchased by a typical large, medium, or small business?
So I did touch upon it a little bit. The Verizon's perspective in the underlying connectivity is that we acknowledge that customers, and especially smaller remote sites, are looking to take advantage of their access, increased access options from the likes of broadband and fixed wireless and so forth. And that can't always be serviced by Verizon. Yes, we have the best network out there with the most coverage, but I think there are lots of options in certain scenarios where 5G may not cover a remote site in the mountains or in EMEA or APAC. Obviously, we don't have 5G presence there. And so we realize that customers may need to get broadband or that last mile access from a different provider than Verizon. And that's why our perspective, and we mentioned the secure hybrid network, is to allow that to occur, but get them onto our network where they can get the SLAs environments. Now, we do believe, and I mentioned this before, that it's really important that you leverage or can have the option to send traffic over a network that you have confidence in. We have seen a lot of customers out there try and go the internet-only route, and what I will say for many of them is that the traditional SD-WAN services out there can make bad internet better, but it doesn't always make it good enough or good enough for them. And that's why you really need to take into account your complete needs of what you want to get out of a new deployment. Yes, you can do SD-WAN internet only, but what we've seen is that customers are rethinking that. It's not as easy to maintain and implement as I thought it was going to be. And again, the performance is not always at a level that they need or want. And there is a key part. The internet is always changing. Peering relationships are always changing. And so if you rely on an SD-WAN that has internet only, that means you always have to configure, update, and track how those connections are working to try and optimize them the best way that they can. Moral of the story is the networks do matter. Get it onto a network that, if you can, the traffic onto a network that you have confidence and get SLAs from, like Verizon, get out to your application.
Great, thank you. So Vinny, the next question I think is linked to the slide when you talked about our partners. So are these two separate solutions being managed with one interface, for instance, Versa plus Zscaler, or is there a deeper integration? Please describe, for example, Zscaler protections integrated with Versa access points.
That is all changing based on how the vendors themselves have created interface points that work well. So, for instance, Cisco and Versa both have some configuration options that make it easier or sometimes harder to connect to one or both of them. But for now, they are both managed separately from a perspective that Verizon looks at it. We've built some tools to try and bring those ticketing alerts and metrics together, so we have a single pane of glass or single ticketing system. That's one of the things that we do is we do bring them down into a single ticketing system so that the customer and our operations teams can see incidents and events that occur in one platform, one pane of glass. And that's the type of interface that we're driving together for that single pane of glass for customers. I can tell you, though, that there are other technologies as you bring into Zero Trust, where there are more and more integrations that are being developed by different partners, where you can take something like an endpoint management solution and have that data feed directly in to the SD-WAN or SSE side of the house, have a dynamic feed on how this platform should behave overall. So for instance, if a device was compromised, you can potentially affect a policy on the SSE side that prevents it to going from anywhere on the internet. And those options are coming down. So our focus at Verizon is to narrow down and try and build out the expertise between certain combinations so we know how to best configure those. Again, that's why we focus on these sets of partners first. And again, we'll expand those out as we gain more expertise and believe we can provide an excellent service end-to-end for the customer.
Okay, the next question is also related to Versa. And it is, given the relationship with PAN, why is PAN not in the SD-WAN stack, as well as, and why is Versa not in the security stack?
Yeah, what I will say is that each one of our partners has an expertise and approach SD-WAN and SASE from the areas of their expertise. Versa first came out and really focused on the SD-WAN side of the house. Palo Alto Prisma, first and foremost, was based off of their UTM, Unified Threat Management capabilities on the CPE hardware, which translated very nicely into the SSE. Palo Alto has acquired a SD-WAN company, and they're still integrating those pieces together. But what we found is that from Verizon's expertise and our ability to manage and deploy networks, we are more comfortable with the Versa SD-WAN technology stack plus Prisma than we are yet from the Prisma end-to-end technology stack. Again, this market is changing. Everybody is evaluating. To not expect that this is going to be the end all and the only thing we will support. It's just where we are right now. So as we're progressing out there and seeing how the different technologies can and are deployed for our customers, we will revisit this and come back and make those recommendations for the customers, or at least go at scale. For Verizon, this is about how do we go at scale on these combinations, and these are the partners and technology sets that we're seeing out in the marketplace right now.
Okay, great, thank you. So before we jump to the next question, I can see that Colleen has pulled up a new poll, so please go in and provide your feedback. So next question, you mentioned something about ticketing system. How will SASE NAS billing work?
SASE NAS billing work.
Yes. How will that work?
Yeah, so that is one of the initiatives that Verizon has piece that we have reformed or reformulated our contracting and pricing conversations for NAS specifically as it relates to sites. Again, our construct is more about sites and how to enable those sites. Do you have a small site, a medium site, a large site? Do you need something with lots of high availability, so lots of like dual CPE, dual connectivity options, or do you not need those capabilities? And those will drive the SLAs, and that's how we're trying to understand is what is your mission in terms of speed and SLA, so we can manage and put together a complete package for you. The SASE piece right now that we've done, or the SASE management, that we haven't really talked about, is based on users. We know that SSEs typically sell based on the number of users or clients there, so the SASE management has mirrored that. We're rolling that SASE management SKU into the NAS contract vehicles right now. That should be available and be part of that NAS contract vehicles by the end of Q2 perspective. So that pricing perspectives, contracting, SLAs will all be combined into one holistic set, opposed to having to deal with individual contracts piece by piece. For us, we have done custom contracts for the large deals with customers in the past, pulling these together, but they're often non-standard, so it takes a long time to quote and actually contract that vehicle. What we're doing with the NAS side of the house is really creating that standard framework so we can do this at scale and very fast for the customers, so we can deliver, not only order, but deliver the solutions in an expedited fashion. hopefully that gives you some perspective of how that's going to work.
You might already have answered the next one since you talked about the SLA. But since this is a managed service, what are the SLAs versus the SLOs?
I don't know how to put it in terms of the SLO. I'd have to take a look at that. What we typically do is are measuring we will have the uptime and response time SLAs in terms of if an issue comes in with the tunnel itself. We create that as a critical outage for the tunnel itself, just like if a CPE was out, and pull that into our normal M&S. If you're familiar with our M&S construct of SLAs for devices health, uptime, and monitoring response, we'll get in there, and I believe it's something like we'll have a 5-minute response time for a critical outage, so we can investigate what's going on there. Of course, the complexity there immediately gets into what was the cause of the outage. Is this a physical thing? Is it an issue with our partner on either side of the house, the SD-WAN side or the SSE side, and how to navigate through that to try and rectify that situation as possible. Both the SD-WAN vendors and the SSE vendors have their own SLAs for their service uptime that we will pretty much dive right back into and fall back onto what their SLAs are. We can augment some of those availabilities based on the architecture. Again, this gets into do we have the failover connections, the failover routes, different underlays for your connectivity, those types of options. So it all comes up to grabs, but our standard set of SLAs are defined in the agreement, and we can get those back to you after this call or get them posted to everybody on what that is.
Okay, that sounds great. Okay, then the next question is about common managed objectives. So, are there common managed objectives in your integrated management? For instance, same user identity, end user devices, IP ranges, or recognized applications? And what policy objects and event logs reporting are unified in the view for Verizon employees versus end users?
Oh, that's a complex statement. What I can tell you is that it's very complex. I think along the themes of where you're getting at the question, and one of the reasons why it's taking us a bit long, one of the objectives for the single pane of glass is to organize all the assets on a site-by-site basis. Again, that seems to be the construct that our customers want. The unfortunate issue with that is that we found that our vendors, our partners, and even our Verizon's internal systems may treat site designations differently. In some cases, it's a physical address. Straightforward, great. In other cases, it's a latitude and longitude set of coordinates. So now we have to map latitude and longitude to an address. In other cases, some of these systems don't actually have the concept of a location or site. Instead, what they rely on is a naming convention of the asset itself that conveys the location. We get another map. So, to the extent that you're looking for that, as we roll out the single pane of glass, we are defining some of those common policies across customers. I'll even go into a conversation for us at the time, and again, the single pane of glass. I believe traditional SD-WAN solutions that we have here. Again, typically have a lot of visibility into the applications being run, and they give stats and data on those applications. At the same time, the SSE providers are often doing application detection and as a mechanism to help enforce zero trust. It's not about performance, it's about zero trust and security. On the SD-WAN side, it's typically about performance. So we're looking to see how we can manage and merge those two concepts together. In our first stages, it's really about getting to a single pane of glass so that you can see these things, not necessarily normalize them. As we gain the learnings on how to integrate and best bring them together, we'll be providing that back to the customer. That's part of the management piece of where Verizon comes into play, is to help traverse those concepts for the customer. Our long-term goal is to make that simple and do that in an automated fashion and present that back to the customer, but that takes time and work. But that's really where Verizon, I think, shows its value, is helping navigate those actual constructs.
Okay, great. Thank you. So let's dive into the partners again. This is about Versa and Palo Alto. We've seen both. What went into the decision to use Versa for single vendor solution rather than Palo? Do you anticipate adding a second single vendor solution based on Palo Alto or another vendor maybe with security legacy?
Yep. For one of the main reasons why that we did go with Versa is that we do recognize, and again, this is a general statement, not a prescriptive statement. But what we were looking at from a single vendor solution is really something that would be more applicable down further market and be that in a small to medium business side. We felt based on our roadmaps that those customers are going to look for a single vendor and really require that a little bit more than the enterprise customers side of the house. And we just thought that the Versa solution was better suited for that market at the time, based on our knowledge, our experience, our deployments, to be able to create that and be able to deliver that single vendor solution geared towards a market segment of really the medium business side of the house. Palo Alto, our enterprise customers, where most of these packages are today, why we did the combination of these services is geared towards enterprises. What we realize is their needs are often more complex in both terms of policy generation and even networking and SD-WAN and so forth, which is why they require it. Palo Alto is definitely making great strides combining their two services together. We're just, based on our development roadmaps and time frame, we're just not there yet. Will we have another vendor? Yeah, most likely. That'll be driven based on the market need and what we're getting asked by our customers.
Okay, so let's leave Versa and Palo for a moment and talk about access. So how are you seeing the Verizon provided access portion of the end-to-end NAS solution? Is that contribution to overall access growth?
That's a great conversation. So what I will say is that Verizon's push here is actually in fixed wireless access 5G side of the house. And that is our push for providing that last mile set of access to get them onto our core network and to leverage our core network and complete transport for them, specifically through the PIP side of the house. But again, we see a lot of growth there on that side of the house. We see a lot of legacy technologies like TDM. We're pushing them off the network. The cost to maintain them, the cost to service them, those legacy technology types are increasing, and therefore we're moving off of that aggressively with the main push towards the 5G side of the house. But again, recognizing 5G is not available everywhere and for our customers, and our customers are looking for a solution that can support all of their locations, not 95, not at 98, but 100% of their locations, which is why we're expanding our secure hybrid network so that we can get customers onto our network if their last mile is not provided by us. So that's key for us, that we can still provide that holistic solution for the customer. On the access side, I can tell you that there are continuing movements to expand our network, higher capacity volumes and circuit sizes that are available for customers as well from Wavefront and the other technologies that we.
Okay, so we talked about access. Now a question about bandwidth. Any patterns emerging around bandwidth requirements and traffic loads, given the new structure of workload and applications and network architecture?
Yeah, bandwidth is increasing. Obviously, that's a simple statement, and everybody can buy off on it. But this is going back to the statement that I made a little bit earlier with the advent of more VoIP and video between users doing work and remote user sessions. Those are more susceptible to jitter and other performance issues on the general internet. Again, that is why what we're starting to see or what we're recommending to customers is to have, if you're going an SD-WAN solution, still make sure that you have the core network accounted for. Get onto a core that can deliver SLAs by and large for the customers. Ideally, Verizon end to end, but again, if you need to get that third-party connectivity for that last mile, okay, work with it, but make that as short a path as possible to get onto our core network at that aspect. The other area that I'll pitch this in, 5G, in terms of applications and so forth. Verizon has been investing pretty heavily in our mobile edge compute side of the house, so I'll put a plug there, which is bringing the applications closer to the customer clients and edge serviced by 5G, and that's by pulling allowing the applications to be deployed just on the edge of the 5G network, not the internet, but close to them, so they can get performance. The performance they need for those types of applications.
Okay, so we're back to access and internet. This is quite a detailed question, but let's see if we can put some light on it. So when you indicated that internet-only customers were less satisfied than those hybrid customers, did those customers have duplicate diverse internet from different ISPs? With the implication of two different POPs? Do we know that?
I don't know that end to end. I'd have to go back and look at some of the use cases specifically there. It's just I'll just say a more general conversation that when we've done the deep dives of where the customers have not been happy, the solution that we've put forth and seem to meet the customer needs is, again, getting them onto our network at some level so they can traverse. And sometimes that means getting the applications routed through our network as well in order to meet their performance needs that they want. It's not everywhere, all sites in all cases, but it is a general trend that we are seeing.
Okay, let's continue to talk about internet and access. Can you please give a sense of the mix of access types most often purchased as part of an end-to-end NAS solution?
It's hard to give you a locked set of. We'd have to go back and I'll be honest. Well, I'll have to go back and do the analysis to get you data on what we're seeing there end to end.
We can check that and come back.
Yeah,
absolutely. Let's see if we could end with quite a technical question, and if we can't address it today, we'll be able to come back. So, how you put tunnel monitoring technology on mobile devices, SD-WAN applications, etc.
Right. So in terms of the endpoint going into an SD-WAN, we're relying on the actual connectivity, the reporting that's coming from the SD-WAN provider itself today. That's how we're doing that. The tunnel monitoring that we're doing from a SASE management perspective is by putting in test traffic across from the SD-WAN into the SSE to make sure that that's working. So we're really focused on that tunnel between the SD-WAN node and the SSE POP or PEP, depending on which nomenclature you want to use, out to the public internet. That's our focus, is right there. We're not yet doing the endpoint all the way through. That has a lot more variables to try and measure, and we typically need to rely on the capabilities that are built in to the client that is deployed on the endpoint, or the mechanism that goes through, which can differ based on the partner and technology that you're using there.
Great, thank you. We are soon at the top of the hour, so I'd just like to remind you a last time about the poll. And I would also like to thank you, Vinny, for the presentation, and I'd like to thank all of you for attending today, and thank you so much for your questions. If you have any further questions, or if you would like a deeper discussion, please let me know. Reach out to Verizon, to the Analyst Relations team, and we will be happy to come back to you on that. With that, I'll thank you again for your time, and I wish you all a very nice weekend. Thank you
Thanks
so
so
much
much.
for attending today.